Welcome to Yes Also. I'm Susie Barrett. My guest today is Sara Rose Caplan. She's a UCB performer on the Herald team XOXO. She plays on the all-trans team, Cuties, and she's a star of the musical improv scene, where she's played with Baby Wants Candy and currently plays in the show Dramatique. We go deep into musical improv here, and Sara has a lot of practical pointers for musical improvisers. And she also opens up about her personal life and speaks very candidly about how coming out as trans changed her improv, which I found really interesting. We touch on that a bit here, but we also recorded an entire bonus episode all about that topic, so don't miss that. That, of course, is at yesalso.supercast.com. And if you're not already an Instagram follower, what are you doing? Head over to Yes Also Pod on Instagram, where we not only have a ton of cool pics of Sara and all of our other guests, but we post video clips and quotes and some improv history. It's a great thing to follow. And with that, let's take it away to Sara Rose Caplan. Thanks so much for doing this. I want to hear like your origin story, how improv arrived in your life. Is that a good place to start?
Sure.
Great.
My origin story is that I never did any improv and didn't really know it existed outside of Whose Line Is It Anyway? Until I'd already graduated college and moved to LA to do motion graphics for a YouTube channel.
Okay.
And my
What year was that?
That was 2016.
Okay.
And my parents came and visited, and I'm a terrible host. And so my mom knew that, like, if she wanted to do something, she had to book something. So she got us tickets to Baby Wants Candy. And I went, and I'd seen one college improv show before, but that was it. And watching Baby Wants Candy, I was just completely blown away. And I left going through all my conspiracy theories of like, well, it's not completely improvised.
Oh.
Of course, they know what the pianists are going to play. They practice the different songs. They like have all this stuff figured out.
It must just be plug and play, where like they have a whole song memorized, but then they plug in the word that the audience said or something.
There's got to be something there.
What's the trick?
Yeah, except that this show was Tree Academy, and it was about a dark academia high school for trees. And there was a bunch of drama around the theater production, and high school trees were being tossed in the wood chipper left and right. And I couldn't figure out how that was plug and play, because I was like, surely they didn't predict any of that.
Right. There are too many factors. There's too many things spinning off of this like central point. Yeah.
But that was just like an art form I had no idea existed. And I decided that night that I wanted to be in Baby Wants Candy. So I started taking UCB classes, and that's it. And then I just fell in love with it.
And your dream came true. You play with Baby Wants Candy.
I did play with
you
Baby
did play.
Wants
Okay,
Candy.
All right. Okay.
Pre-pandemic, when Baby had weekly shows, I played with them. Now that they've been reduced to once a month, I'm a little too JV within the Baby Wants Candy ranks, so I've been asked to do it like once, but
still counts.
It counts.
Yeah.
I play potentially still with Baby Wants Candy, depending on Al's choices.
Right. You are on their radar, and you have played with them. And I mean, truly though, for someone to come in cold to improv as mostly as like, or at least long form improv completely as an art form, like you've only seen Whose Line, you see Baby, you get obsessed, and for someone to like be at that level and just decide they want to do it, and then that dream comes true is pretty remarkable. That you got to play with your dream team.
Yeah, it was amazing. I got to play with them starting in 2019, so it took me like 2.5 years to get there.
Sounds like light speed. Most of our listeners too will be like, I've been doing this for so long and I haven't. It's a long road usually.
It is.
Yeah.
It's something I think about a lot. And I want to acknowledge, because I think it's important to acknowledge this, it was like light speed, and I'm very aware that the only reason I could have gone through the classes and everything at that speed is because I had parents who were extremely supportive of me and paid for all my classes and helped me afford rent in LA so that I could like work one job that didn't really pay me enough money to live here and then have time to do practice groups and stuff.
Yeah.
I know so many people who are doing improv while also completely supporting themselves and often supporting a parent back home, and they're like working 2 or 3 jobs and still finding time to do stuff.
Right.
And I had a very unfair advantage.
Yeah. What cool parents you have as well. Who
I have the best parents.
Yeah, that's so fortunate. And thanks for acknowledging that. That is such a huge factor with improv. Is like you need to, especially when you're first starting out, you need free time and you need money and resources, and it's like those are very hard to come by usually, especially living in a big city. A big city like Los Angeles.
It's very big.
It is, yeah. Where is home for you? Where did you?
I'm from Houston.
Oh, okay, great. And you said motion graphics. Was your goal always to do that in film or something?
I had no goals. I was
okay.
I studied philosophy in college, and I graduated with absolutely no idea what I was going to do. I'd always thought I was going to go into academia, and unfortunately, I'm a bad student. And so my advisor in college, I was like, I want to write an honors thesis so I can apply to grad school and stuff. And she was like, no, a thesis is not for you. So I didn't write one.
Man.
Yeah.
But you wonder, like, if that teacher had sort of a different personality or a different view, they might have been like, I can help nurture what you can do.
No, I'd been working. She'd been my advisor for 4 years, and I'd taken a bunch of classes with her. She's amazing, Professor Allison Simmons. If anyone knows her, go tell her thank you for me. No, she was saving me from a bad decision.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That fair. It's just like I want to. The rosy cheeks in me want to look at it and be like, but everyone can do what they try at. And not for you.
I think what I wanted to be was a professor, but I did not have any interest in being an academic.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want to write research papers and stuff.
Right.
And it was fine. I was like, I heard her wisdom and I acknowledged the truth of it.
Yeah.
I didn't feel disheartened. I was like, you're right.
When you started improv, did that feel like a snug fit? Was that like, oh, this makes sense to my brain and this is something I can do easily?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Overall, yes. I mean, when I started doing improv, I was in love immediately, and it was the best thing I'd ever done. And I felt like a lot of it was a very snug fit with like the brain parts of improv. I was like, oh, I get this. Like I wasn't someone who had a lot of trouble figuring out game. Like a lot of it clicked to me pretty naturally. But where it wasn't a snug fit is that I just wasn't a performer. So
interesting.
I was the note I would get all the time in every UCB class was like, yeah, I mean, the move you're making, it's like technically a good move, but if you don't actually commit to it, it doesn't work. Right.
From your user experience, were you feeling like you were like when you would get a note like that, was it like, I feel like I am committing, why isn't it reading? Or were you like, oh, right, I wasn't thinking about that at all, I was just thinking about the move?
It was more the former. I was an extremely shy and I don't know. I just like, I'd be like, I get it. I just don't know what to do about that.
Right. Like, yeah, I've always wondered this about students because I come from the totally opposite end of the spectrum and was like a giant ham as a kid and, you know, musical theater and all that stuff. Just like, if anything, you need to like dial back my commitment and dial up the intellectual moves that I'm making. So yeah, I wonder about like, because improv is pretty much like a 50-50 split. Like half the people are coming at it from your angle and half from the other. Yeah. And and I've always wondered, like on your side, is it like, I feel like I am doing it. What do I do more? And so like how did you work your way through that? How did you help dial in your commitment more?
So that gets into a topic that we're going to touch on later, I think, which is I'm trans. Hello, listener. If you don't know me, I'm a trans woman. But when I started improv, this was pre-transition, and so as a little kid, I had been that kind of ham type. Like, I was in fifth grade, I would spend many a recess just listening to the Jekyll and Hyde soundtrack on my CD player, and like singing to myself in the field.
That is an absolutely darling image.
Yeah, and then I think like I'd done my whole childhood. Elementary school, I did Odyssey of the Mind every year. Which are you familiar with Odyssey
I
of the Mind?
am. I found out about it like after school, like in adulthood, and was like, why didn't anyone invite me
Right?
to that? Yeah, it's like mind games for kids, like solving puzzles and building things and figuring out.
So there's like two halves to it.
Okay.
One half is basically kind of improv short form games.
Oh,
They'll like give you a random object and they'll say like, how many names can you come up for this object? You have
I
2
love
minutes.
this.
And then it's like you get points if they're really creative or funny. Or sometimes they'll pour out a bucket of random stuff and they'll be like, you have to get this marble to that corner of the room and it's not allowed to touch the ground. You can use anything here. These are the limitations.
I love it so much.
So that's half of it. It's like in the moment. The other half is a 7-minute sketch, basically, that your team has spent like 6 months writing and rehearsing and building the set for and making all the props and costumes for. And parents aren't allowed to help. Like, the kids have to do everything. And every team has a strict budget of like $150. So it's not like you can go buy fancy stuff and win.
Right. The rich kid can't prevail by using hydraulics and a
Right.
laser light. And yeah.
So my team, even in elementary school, every year we would write a musical. And you have a bunch of rules you have to follow. It has to be, one year it was like, pick one of these 3 artists. At least 3 characters have to be figures from one of their paintings. Like, you figure out why, but etc.
Yeah.
So I'd done this. I was like, I spent my whole elementary school years building backdrops and making costumes and writing songs and performing them. And then at some point in middle school, like puberty times, I think the awareness that was all potentially like gay
Yeah.
came in, and it was just like complete shutdown repression
Yeah.
for a long time. And that was a wall I was hitting in these classes where I was like, well, I know you want me to like go bigger or whatever, but like I'm not supposed to.
Right. Got it. Yeah. I exist under a lid and behind a closet door now. I cannot let that stuff out, or you might
Right.
see my shameful secret. Or
And a lot of that was not at all
not
at like
conscious.
a conscious level.
Yeah. I
So-
totally get that. Yeah.
I don't have good generic advice for any students out there who are struggling with this. I would say, I mean, figure out if there are any limits you're not aware of that are prohibiting you. Like, I know also for me, just I had a lot of social anxiety and fear of embarrassment, like the fear of being vulnerable and putting myself out there, transness aside, was huge and underestimated. Like, I wasn't as aware of it until you start going through classes and you do a bunch of bits that completely bomb, and yeah, you just play like the most embarrassing characters doing the worst Australian accent anyone's ever done. And then you realize, like, it's okay. Like,
Right.
I did it. I got through it. I'm okay. I'm not an outcast now because I can't do an Australian accent.
Right.
And it just gets easier every time.
A big lesson that I learned when I was doing Boom Chicago, which like demands a lot of that kind of stuff, where it's like you suddenly get pimped into like doing a very like an impression that is not in your wheelhouse, or like, you know, you said Australian accent. I'm like, oh yeah, we used to have to play Steve Irwin a lot, or like you'd get thrown into like, yeah, a realm of specifics you don't know about, or a voice that you have to do, you know. And very, very early in that process, I learned like the bigger you swing, even if it's a failure,
the more success you'll have. Because like
Yeah.
the audience forgives. They can tell that you haven't like brushed up on this like rehearsed Australian accent. And if you come in swinging and you belly flop, it's okay. It's
Yeah.
like it's still a splash, you know. So yeah, it's cool that that was part of the integration of this. Was like, what's the most humiliating thing I can do? Oh, I just did it, and it actually doesn't feel so bad. And
Yeah.
actually, it still got laughs and got credit because they appreciate that I went for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that I think if I hadn't gone into this also wanting to do musical improv and therefore like studying musical improv and working with people like Tara Copeland and Ashley Ward, it would have been a lot harder for me to break through this performance wall. Just taking regular UCB classes, because it's just not a focus. Like performance isn't a thing that gets touched on as much as it does in the world of musical, because musical improv exists in the world of musical theater largely, where the base reality is extraordinarily heightened.
Yeah.
Very different from the grounded play of, like, I don't know, your standard Harold.
Right.
And so I was just pushed, like, I just was continually pushed really hard to play big characters. And musical, that exact thing you're talking about is doubly true. Like, if you start a song and you are scared and you half commit, that's like the worst feeling you can have on stage.
Right.
Like the audience feels awkward, so they're not into it. They can tell you're afraid. And then it becomes a feedback loop where it's like they're acting weird, so you get more anxious and you pull back more, and then that makes them pull back more, and then it's like, I gotta finish this song. I got a verse, chorus, bridge, chorus to go.
Yeah, that's the other thing. You can't just bail or like tag into someplace else. You have to fulfill the contract.
Yeah.
It's like, oh God, we have 3.5 minutes left of this. Have you been in songs like that were going that badly and you felt that feedback loop?
Oh yeah, 100 times.
Yeah.
I've been in so many bad songs. But it's the lesson you learn, or the lesson I've learned, that I teach musical improv workshops these days. And like the main thing I feel like I'm telling people all the time is when you're feeling that happening, the only thing you can do is just like triple down and commit, like make fun of yourself. Like it's very different from honest, grounded play we get in regular improv, where it's like react honestly and naturally and be yourself. When you're feeling like you're in a song and it's not going anywhere, and then you just have to like, I'm going to play a character who is myself times 1,000. Figure out like, why do I care about this? Well, fine. You know, I guess I cook my ramen this way because it's how my dad cooked this ramen for me before he went to war. Yeah, like
yeah.
pick any reason to care 1,000,000 times about this thing.
Yeah.
And then you just have to commit. And if you back off and you like do the thing where you're honestly like, well, I mean, I guess that's not really why. That's a silly thing to think about ramen. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
If someone questions you, you have to be like, how dare you? My father cooked me ramen this way before he went to war.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the only way through.
It's the only way through. The only way out is through. I find in my experience, and I wonder if you've felt this as well, that with something like that, with a device like a dramatic song or the permission to go really cartoonishly big with emotion, it almost helps. It gives you like a shield or like a vulnerability shield, because it's like me talking like this and really feeling this pain is like so much less vulnerable feeling than my actual naked vulnerability.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, if I'm actually just playing myself, I'm going to be like, I mean, you're listening to this podcast. My normal talking voice, I've been told my entire life, it's like, you're kind of monotonous. And, yeah, it's like I feel like you're saying interesting words, but whoa, I'm just falling asleep.
Yeah, boy. Say it again. I'm asleep. Yeah.
So it's wonderful to be able to be a character who just like whatever it is, it's wow. this vulnerability shield. I've never had something so amazing in my life.
Your ramen's getting cold.
Dad.
My dad. Papa.
Papa.
I think that's like a common misconception with newer students or people who are new to musical improv is like feeling the fear of breaking through into that sort of melodrama zone or I don't want to call it melodrama because that like feels like a judgment. But the
No, it's melodrama.
you know what I mean? The permissive place of like
Yeah.
really going at a 10. The misconception is like that's the scarier thing or that's the harder thing when really it's actually like easier than waffling or than not making the choice. So the permission to just go hard right away, stick with it, trust it, and hang on to that. Remember the cartoon of the Little Prince? I don't know if you.
Yes, I do.
Where he's like catching comets with his like butterfly net, and it's like that. If you can snag a comet and just ride it, you're good. Like you'll sail.
One of the shows I do somewhat irregularly, but roughly once every month to 3 months at UCB.
Great plug. That's great promo.
Listen, I wish we had a regular slot that I could promote, but we simply don't.
Yeah, gotcha.
I don't know when this episode comes out, but if it's before December 20th and you're listening to it before December 20th, come see the Dramatique Christmas special at UCB.
The great irony is I think it's coming out just after December 20th.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
And I knew that was a risk.
Yeah.
So...
I appreciate you taking risks, and I hopefully will reward that risk with some friendly nods and.
You gotta catch a comet,
right?
I have a show I do called Dramatique, which is a hour-long narrative sung through melodramatic musical improv.
Beautiful. That
I do with my very good friend Andrew Young, and the whole thing is like we're gonna do a Les Mis. No one's allowed to talk. For an hour, we're singing, music is happening, and we're also trying to tell a somewhat coherent narrative in the process.
And it's just the two of you?
No, well, it's usually so there's like a core group we ask first, but it's people like Zach Reno and Ross Bryant, Giovanni and Mary Lou. It's people like them because those are the four, and they always get first dibs, but they're all like always on tour or on set because they're amazing people.
Yeah.
So it's at least a cast of 4 or 5.
And what do you get as your suggestion, or what's the source?
I get a 3-part suggestion.
Okay.
Every time. I get 3 suggestions that are taken in isolation from each other. So one person has to come up with a setting. One person has to come up with some kind of like character archetype that will be in this show.
Okay.
And one person gives us the name of the opening number, the chorus of the opening number.
Great.
And I force them all to lock it in before telling each other what they've picked.
Oh, they're like these are audience members, yeah.
They're audience members, so I go through and I'll tell them, I'll be like, I need you to come up with a setting, but don't say it.
You're saying this to one individual person in the audience.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
Do you have it? Great. Don't say it.
Okay, I have it.
And
Great.
And then I'll move on. So I'll get those 3 different people locked in, and then we'll hear what they are. And it's some batshit combination of things.
Right.
Like we did one that was like, we're on the International Space Station, and on this space station there will be a Transylvanian witch. Fantastic. And the chorus of our opening number is, it's not fan fiction. So, and then we have to we'll start from there, and then we're like, great, now we have an hour where we're not allowed to talk to each other. We can only sing.
Yeah.
To figure out how this is a story.
I love it. That's so great, and sounds so challenging to do an hour with no dialogue. It's just songs, right?
Yeah. But it gets to what you're saying, like, it's the same thing with pushing through to the melodrama, and this isn't intentionally like super dramatic space. This is Les Mis. The music sounds like Les Mis, and we're all Javerts and Jean Valjeans, and it's not nearly as hard as it seems like it would be. Like musical improvisers that I know are like, damn, that just scares me so much to think about. But once you're in it, it's like you've thrown yourself down the mountain, and you just kind of got to ski down, but you have all this momentum carrying you.
Yeah.
Whereas I find that now, when I go back to doing musical improv that's like scene into song, I'm like, where's the energy? I feel stuck. And
Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to ask you that. Like, if you notice going back the other way, if that feels weird. Yeah, is it almost like a momentum stopper to like finish a big musical number in a regular show, not dramatique? You finish a huge number, and then it's like, well, I'm gonna head to the office, and now you're back in dialogue, and you have to
Yeah.
like work your way back to a song.
What I've found is it's just like I just bring that energy into the rest of my play. Mm-hmm. It's helped me realize in musical improv, at least, like, oh, right, I'm always in a musical. Like, it's so easy for us to think I'm doing improv now and then I'll do a song. But that's not how it works, actually. We're always on a Broadway stage. And even if you're not doing dramatique and you're not singing in your scene, you can always be presenting yourself as though you're a character in a Broadway show. No? No. Don't tell me that. Don't tell me my son's father isn't coming home to make him ramen.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, there's a fire in the belly at all times that's like pushing this stuff out. And if you're not singing, that's just because there's a lid on the pot at the moment. But when you
Exactly.
are, it's like it can't help itself but to overflow.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you always get to like it because it's musical, like you always get to break the fourth wall. You can always walk away and deliver a dramatic aside up to the spotlight. Like you can do whatever you want.
Right. Yeah, I love that. When you started Dramatique, did you put a cast together and start rehearsing, or do you all just go in cold because you have a vocabulary from baby?
These are people we've all played together a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, Ross and Zach were my coaches for years, and Ross, Zach, Mary Lou, and I played D&D together, so we were
that's
like
great.
always doing bits together.
Uh-huh.
Giovanni was on my first ever improv team. We were on a musical mess hall team called Bevel in 2017.
Uh-huh.
So we've been like, and Andrew and Mary Lou and I have been on a team forever. So we're just people who are familiar enough with each other and how we play. That the first one we just kind of showed up and they were all like, "So wait, what are we doing again?" And I was like, "We're doing a sung through." They're like, "So no talking?" "Nope." "What are we doing for the opening number?" "Oh, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see."
Right.
It's like, it really wasn't super thought through. Sorry, Christine. But it has evolved. Like, it's evolved into a thing that I still would not say, like, there's a form. Like, there's no rules about it. There's no opening number we do every time or anything. But every show feels like a dramatique show, even if it's a different cast. So much of that is the pianist. Like,
Yeah. Is Scott your pianist, or who
no, it's whoever's available.
Okay.
It's usually Sam Janitis or Aaron Wilson or Tony Gonzalez.
Brilliant.
But
Yeah.
I mean, all the musical improv pianist accompanists are the most like brilliant people who ever
They're-
take the stage.
Absolutely filthy, stinking geniuses.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and the level of listening and the level of almost like a Jedi's ability to know exactly when to come in and at what, you know what I mean? It's like that. It's like watching a perfect tango or something. Yeah.
And that's really what they are, is they're incredible listeners with amazing reaction time. If you're a musical improv person, you're listening to this, I teach workshops with Sam a lot, so I talk to him a lot about like what he wants people to know. And it's the improvisers are the conductors of the scene. Newer musical improvisers are always like waiting for the pianist to guide them. They're like, when does the song start? When does the song end? I'm going to let the pianist tell me. But that's you have the direction wrong. You just start ending the song, and trust me, the song will start ending. It will feel seamless. But he can only, like, he's better than we are. So we need to be the one making choices, and he can react to them way more effectively than we can react to his choices.
That is such good advice, or such a good pointer. It also makes sense. It's like you have a lyrical content and storyline and rhyming jokes that you are also in charge of as the singer of the song. And so he's going to defer to making sure that you complete whatever story you want to tell, like a an accompanist isn't going to just make the choice to end it when you're like, but I was working my way to this point that I need to say. Yeah, that's so good. Any other key things that you've talked to him about?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is like commitment. He needs you to commit, and know that, like, okay, I'll tell you Sam's biggest pet peeve. Unless you're literally me and you've played with him a million times, do not directly address him or give him instruction.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you'll see people do it, like, start the song.
Oh, geez.
And, like, don't do that. If you need a song to start, you have to, first of all, if he's not playing, Sam is all the accompanists. They're amazing. If you think a song has started and you've been like, you know, well, that's how I cook my ramen. That's how you cook your ramen? That's how I cook my ramen. And you're like, it's ready. Where's the music? It's not coming. It's because the accompanist is trying to kindly let you know that, like, you haven't dug deep enough into the emotional motivation for this repeated line to have a song. If he starts playing, you're going to sing a bad song because you don't know what it's about yet. It's not about the ramen.
Yeah, right. That's so fascinating to think about it that way, that, like, you are getting a silent cue from the absence of a song instructing you to dig deeper into the emotion or the backstory. Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll have that moment all the time, like, it's all about the ramen. It's all about the ramen. It's all about the ramen. And then if the accompanist's not playing, and sometimes you'll see people try to force it. That's what I said. It's all about the ramen.
And he's like, it's not about the ramen.
Ooh, boy, it's all about the ramen. It's all about the ramen. And then you fucked up in your scene when you get this song. It's always like a dun 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 dun, and then the song is like, hey, it's all about the ramen. The ramen's what it's about. And it's like, okay, that's the pianist saying, like, all right, have your nothing song.
Yeah, here you go.
That's what you wanted? Great.
You're in an Oompa ramen song. Yeah.
Whereas, if you're like, it's all about the ramen, it's not about the ramen, it's silence. But why is it all about the ramen?
Here comes the music. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, that's not unique to musical improv. It's just the unique manifestation of it. But if you're a regular improviser, you'll find this happening all the time when you're like, but I made a game move. Why didn't it work? Yeah. And it's like, because your game move wasn't motivated.
It was empty of relationship or feeling or whatever else. Yeah. You were just, your quote unquote game move was kind of just a joke or just like a surface thing that is commenting on. Yeah. That's really interesting. It also occurs to me, it's like the brazenness of turning to an accompanist and going like, start the song.
God.
Imagine translating that into non-musical improv, like leaning out to the back and going like, enter now, mom, enter, or like,
or it's almost like looking at the audience and saying, laugh.
Right.
That was the game.
Right. That's more equivalent. I guess we do call for walk-ons all the time. Like, Grandma, can you come here or whatever? But yeah, turning to an audience and going, this is where you laugh. We just said, that was great. Laugh.
It's the please clap of improv.
Please clap. Yeah. When you started taking classes, did you start in like musical improv classes in conjunction with your regular UCB program?
So it used to be different. Now I think some people just hop right into musical 101, or you're supposed to have taken 101, but some people skip it. When I was taking classes, you had to finish improv 201 and pass before you could take musical improv 101. Mm-hmm. And then you had to finish improv 401 and get accepted to the academy if you wanted to take like musical improv 401, which is what it's called now. It's changed a little bit. Like now I think people take improv 101 and then they can do the whole musical curriculum without ever having to take an improv class again, which I think is unfortunate. It's musical improv is at its base improv.
Right.
And like that's the most important skill.
Yeah. Do you think that that by narrowing the focus on a musical improv right away, maybe people are missing, because there's other skill to learn there, they're kind of missing or rushing past the nuts and bolts of doing scene work and things like that?
Yeah. I think what I see happening to people is Exactly. Like they miss so much about how to do scenes, how to like think about yourself as a character, how to find justification, I mean all the fundamentals you need to learn, because that's not what they're teaching in a musical improv class. Like they're assuming they can't stop and teach you improv because then there's no time to teach you the musical part.
Right.
Like if you want to learn musical improv, the best thing you can do is become a really good improviser.
Mm-hmm.
And it's okay to do them together, like as long as you never drop that other half.
Yeah.
But I see a lot of people who I think do drop the other half because they I don't know why they're seen as like separated art forms much more than they should be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like one is like frosting on the cake or something. It's like it's an additional thing, but you still need the foundation. They do demand different skills and different there are elements of musical improv you have to learn and practice. But yeah, it's not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
Like it's intertwined, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like when you think about the people who are the best musical improvisers. Obviously, you have Zach Reno and Jess McKenna, who've been like undeniably the most successful musical improvisers of the last few years, who are both amazing and hyper accomplished regular improvisers. I mean, they both graduated from Harold. Like Jess tours all over the country doing improv.
Yeah.
And you know, Zach's just an improv genius.
Yeah, they're both just the best. Yeah.
But you're never going to be Zach and Jess. You're never going to be off book unless your improv is as good as theirs is.
Right.
And I have a lot of students who come in who are like, well, I'm not a very good singer. Is that a problem? And I always point to Nick Mandernock.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry if you're listening, Nick, but Nick Mandernock like doesn't have an amazing voice. He's not someone who would ever be on Broadway, but because his improv instincts are so freaking sharp, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like he can play in that space on that stage with anybody in the entire world and still like steal scene after scene because he's an incredible improviser.
And he commits to
So
the
hard.
weirdest choice 1,000%.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah, and his emotional play is so off the charts. Like, I mean, it's rare that I see him finish a show where he's not like red-faced and sweating and like shirt untucked, and you know, it's like he's just really, really going for it at all times.
Yeah, he's I mean, one of my favorite people in the world to watch.
Yeah, totally. Do you have favorite I hate saying, well, who are some people that you love doing musical improv with for different reasons? Like are there like different like that where it's like, oh, I love being in a scene with Nick because he always pushes us into bigger emotion or whatever. Are there people like that you've like learned from on stage?
100%. Yes. Nick is like exactly that. Watching Nick, I'm like, okay, it puts into context all the notes I would get about like, you're not committing. I'd be like, I don't get it. And then I would go like watch Magic to Do back at Sunset, RIP, and watch Nick Mandernock. And I'd be like, oh, okay, I see.
Right.
I don't know how to do that, but I do understand what I'm lacking.
Right. I see the difference now. Okay.
Yeah.
Note received. Yeah.
And, I've been so lucky to get to do a lot of shows with Zach, and not only is Zach like just the nicest guy.
Mm-hmm.
When you're on a stage with him, have you done much performing with Zach?
A little bit. Yeah. Only on like mashup things here or there, but and not for years.
He's done, you know, a few of these dramatique shows, and I've done like Baby with him and stuff. And I never, ever feel so safe in a show as when Zach Reno is on the back line. Because I feel so much more free to just do absolutely anything and fully commit and lose myself in a scene because I know that Zach Reno will come in with a walk-on that perfectly contextualizes whatever is happening, or that'll make me realize like, yes, that is what I'm doing. That is what this character is about. That is where the show is going. You're right. And his like, and Jess McKenna's the same way. It's why Off Book is so successful and they can do it as two prov, but I just haven't played as much with her. But both of them have such like an incredible understanding of story and narrative structure.
I was gonna say their narrative instincts are so finely tuned that
it's amazing.
You know what I mean? It reads like improvised Pixar films, where it's like, yes, of course, that would be the way that this character learns their lesson, and it's always creative when they do it as well. It's like, oh, I didn't see that coming, and yet it pays off and fulfills the story requirements.
How many hundreds of hour-long musical narratives at this point? And still, like, you listen to them do a show and you're like, wow, that's not where I expected that story to go, but it's correct.
Right. Yeah, that's great. What a compliment. When you said, I never feel as safe as when Zach is on the back line. Yeah. What a compliment. Yeah.
He's the best. And I feel, I don't want to leave anyone out. You're not being left out.
That's why I resist saying like favorite. It's like just favorites. What are some things that you've learned from people?
I'm like mostly thinking of mentors because I have a lot of peers I love playing with that I don't want to get into calling out, but these are people who've been like my coaches.
Yeah.
I think some of the absolute most fun I've ever had on stage in scenes is with Ross Bryant.
He's a powerhouse.
Oh, I mean, Ross is like just, I don't know, like Zach and Nick, incredibly nice and friendly. Ross brings a different style that I think is something more close to what I aim for in my personal improv. Like, he is so smart and like so knowledgeable, and he's not afraid to bring that to bear on stage. But in a way that is like, he I don't know how he does it. He'll be on stage in a scene and he'll like make references to specific lines from Paradise Lost or like German theologians from the 1800s you've never heard of, but in a way that's like endearing and doesn't come off like he's a pretentious asshole. And I'm an overeducated, like academically oriented person who always wants to drop a bunch of trivia like that. And I'm always like so afraid of being the pretentious asshole that I hold myself back a lot. And getting to do scenes with Ross where it's like, let's just be crazy smart for a scene.
Yeah.
It's so freeing and fun. And I like with Zach, like when I'm doing those scenes with Ross, I feel safe because I'm like, you are such a master of this and you're doing it with such just genuine love for the stuff you know. It's not like to show off, that I get to join in your protective aura for a scene.
Oh man, I love that image too. Great, like almost like D&D analogy. Like Zach is the cleric who can bring anything back to life. Ross has a protective aura that gives the scene more hit points or something. Like, I want to drill into this for a second, talking about like, oh, let's just be crazy smart for a scene. Let's just know what we know and not be afraid of making these references or whatever. How do you do that without leaving an audience behind or without isolating that smart stuff from the scene at hand?
Yeah, that's a great question that I'm always trying to figure out. I think it's a thing I've been really working hard on being better at incorporating into my own play. Like, this is the most pretentious thing I'll say on this podcast.
Please.
But like, I'm a smart person, people. I've read, I study philosophy. I've read too many books. I think about
Name the number. Say the number.
I've read 1,724 books. I keep a tally.
Okay.
No, I don't know.
Mine's two higher. I'm two more than that.
Well, I defer to you.
What does defer mean?
Oh, fuck.
So you've read a lot of books.
Read a lot of books. Smart. I'm just overeducated. I have a pretty bad memory from my personal life. Like, I'm not, like, my cousin was just in town and he's like, remember this? And I kept being like, I don't.
Right.
But I have a very good memory for, like,
Kierkegaard.
Yeah, exactly. Kierkegaard. Like, you want to know the names of the 9 muses? I got you. And that's been something that's been really hard for me to incorporate on stage, even though it's so much my instinct will be to like, oh yeah, that reminds me of this thing. And you're like, but I can't do that. That's like a pretentious asshole thing to talk about. Like, no one wants to hear you talk about Kierkegaard on stage. And it's after like transness, which was this huge barrier that I've successfully kind of grappled with, and it's improved and opened up a lot of my play. That became this barrier as for reacting honestly and playing true to myself, where I'd be like, well, what I would reference here in real life is I could never do that in a scene. That's not comedy. That's I mean, it's assholery. Like, that's the word I keep saying, because that's like the word, the label of the gate on my moves.
Yeah. It's interesting that both of those are like twin internal issues, where it's like both of them are, this is who you really are, but because you're putting it through this filter of like perceiving what the perception will be of your truth, you guard it and hedge it and put it through that weird needle.
And it makes for worse play. Like, when I've been really trying to just like, I'm just gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna learn from Ross. I'm just gonna go out there and make moves. In a Cuties show last night, which is an all trans improv team at UCB, we have a show once a month, second Sundays. Great show. Come out. Most batshit insane improv you'll ever see in your life. Like, that's a show where we are all, it's an all trans show. There's no form. It's like, do whatever the fuck you want to do. And so I had this running bit where I would just, instead of initiating a scene, I would just walk out and talk to the audience about trans history. And I'd be like, all right, everyone, let's talk about Autobiography of an Androgyne, published in 1913 by Jenny June. And it, like, I think initially my teammates let it go on for too long because they kept being like, where's the joke?
Right.
I was like, there's no joke.
Nope, this is just what I'm doing right now.
We're doing this right now. And I don't know if that was fun for the audience, but boy, it was fun for me.
I love that there is a show that has a home for all of that, where it's like, and that the sort of seed at the center of that show is, we're all going to do what pleases us and brings us joy.
Yeah.
And we're going to see what that ends up being. And it might not be what normal shows look like, but it's going to be amazing for us. And I love that. Do you feel like those shows end up having like a sort of a different shape each time, or?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cuties is the most crazy, experimental, wild improv I've ever been a part of. It's so fun to be in, and like literally anything can happen. And the beauty of that team more than anything else is any single choice you make will be supported 100%. Like, and that leads to the most insane things, which is why I love it. Like, there's no one on that stage in that moment, at least, is worried about like, am I doing improv good?
Yeah.
How is the audience looking at me and thinking that's a good improviser? That's a good move. That's correct improv.
Right.
They're thinking like, I don't know what the audience is thinking. Honestly, we're not performing for them. We're performing a scene where Chris Renfro comes out as the server at a Ukrainian restaurant and does an Australian accent. And that's what the Ukrainian accent is now. And we're all going to do it. We're all going to do it. And then it's going to become an elaborate, nested narrative about a poor Ukrainian family that died on a blimp and was replaced by a bunch of Australians who now have to pretend to be Ukrainian. And it has no form. It has no structure. It's like an Ouroboros of a show.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I love it.
What was the origin of that show? How did you all come together and decide to do it?
So Ruha put that show together, and the origin was they wanted to do improv with all trans people.
Yeah. Great.
And that was it. Like, there was no form, anything. It was just, let's go out.
They're the one who reached out to you all and kind of gathered the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, cool.
I'm so grateful I got to be on it. Like, I had just moved back I left LA during the pandemic, and I had like just moved back and happened to be in the green room with Ruha at the same time. And I was like, I really wanted to do trans improv. And they were like, well, I'm putting together a team.
Destiny. Yeah.
So
When you left, was that back to Houston?
no, I moved to the Bay for law school.
Oh, wow. Whoa.
Yeah.
Did law school during the pandemic?
Yeah. So 2020 to 2022, I was in law school. I dropped out at the end of my second year and moved back to LA to do improv.
My goodness. Wow. Can I ask what the reason for dropping out was or
Yes, I hated it.
good enough reason?
Again, as my advisor pointed out many years ago, I'm a bad student. I have a really hard time doing things that feel arbitrary. And I was like sitting there writing my fifth 30-page term paper on something I didn't care about, and then
An essay literally about arbitration.
yes. And it's like I was like, I don't care about this. The professor doesn't care what I have to say about this. Like it's all this, like everything, but it's once you like realize like, aha, I'm participating in a charade. This is a game. We're just playing one big board game. And law itself is just one fucking made up game.
Right.
I was like, I knew that going in. I didn't want to be a lawyer, but I was like, maybe as a trans lawyer, I'll be useful. I'll be able to help people. And I was like, I know that I won't be able to engage in this fictitious but deadly game. Like, it will grind me down before I'm actually able to help people.
Yep.
That's a
And
personal
then you're
weakness.
of no use to
Right.
anyone if you're not. Yeah.
Like the people who can do it, Chase Strangio, who like just was the first trans person to ever argue a case in front of the Supreme Court. Like trans or not trans, the people who are able to go into law and do actual public service, public defenders, like civil rights lawyers, those people are fucking amazing.
Heroes. Yeah.
Like public defenders have like a 2-year lifespan because the job is so brutal. And I wasn't as strong as those people.
The beautiful, hilarious irony that you, after 2 years of law school, which most people think of as like the avatar for a grown-up job in a serious profession, you were like, this is a charade. This is so silly. What a game. I'm going to go back to singing songs about ramen with my friends, you know?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But that is more real. Like,
yes, it's hilarious because it's true, but also on the surface it looks like the upside down, but it's really not. Like
that's the lie we've been told. I've been reading this book called The Dawn of Everything by David Graeber and David Wingrove, which is like an anarchist re-examination of Neolithic history, and it's really freaking amazing and inspiring. But I've been thinking a lot about that like 75,000 years that humans just existed before they were organized in recognizable states that exist on the archaeological record. And I don't know why we talk about improv like it's a new art form.
right.
Like, and people like, yeah, improv was invented by Del Close. And we're like, no, humans making up stories, doing bits with each other to entertain each other around a fire has to be the oldest art form.
Yeah, that's ancient. The current iteration of it and these schools and ways of explaining it and formalized games and training, like that is newer.
That's newer.
Yeah.
But like, in my opinion, there are very few things that are more fundamentally human than the chance to just like fuck around with your friends and make people laugh.
True. Yeah. Yeah, and necessary. Like if you imagine sucking that oxygen out of the human experience and how quickly our plants would all wilt, our personal plants. It's just like we need this. We need the social interaction. We need a forum where we can blow off steam and process our emotions in a fun and healthy way.
Totally.
Yeah. When you teach musical theater workshops, what is your focus of those? Are they general or are you zeroing in on specific skills?
All the ones I teach right now are drop-ins, so I never know who's going to be there. I will talk to everyone at the start of the class. It's usually 4 to 6 people. And every time I ask them, what's one thing you're good at and proud of in your play right now, and what's one thing you're wanting to work on? And I'll hear what they're all working on, and then I'll just start making up exercises to help them. I'll be like, okay, like most recently, someone was like, I feel like when what I'm struggling with is when I know what the game is, like I know what the scene is, and then someone does a walk on I didn't expect. I have a really hard time handling that, and I end up just like rejecting the walk on instead of incorporating it smoothly. And someone else's thing they wanted to work on was I'm very afraid of making the wrong walk on, so I hold back too much. And then I'll just be like, okay, well, those seem aligned.
Let's pair those two up. Yeah.
How do we do something here?
Yep.
And I'll just like make something up and see if it works. Like in that case, I forced person A and another person to do a scene that person B was not allowed to watch. They were out of the room. And then when it felt like y'all have a scene going here, I went and got person B and was like, all right, now do a walk on.
Oh, I love this.
And then we just saw what happened. And it was chaotic.
Yeah.
But getting to like see the epitome of that moment, and like I do a lot of pausing and side coaching and like, what are you feeling in this moment right now? Why is that the choice you're making? What do you think? It's a lot of trying to slow down the scenes and examine like what's in your mind right now. And that's not always the most helpful thing for people. Like I know a lot of people prefer like, well, just let me do the scene and see what I would do, and then you can give me notes after.
Yeah.
And I get it. But they get that from a lot of other people. And my advisor, Allison Simmons, in college, she started every intro philosophy class by saying philosophy is thinking in slow motion. And it's just forcing yourself to pause at every step that you're making to get from point A to conclusion B, and asking like, why did I making that choice? Is that a sound deduction or whatever?
Yeah.
And that's how I tend to approach these improv scenes.
That's so interesting. Yeah, like because you have been trained to see the world through the lens of philosophy, of course that informs how you coach and teach. Yeah, I love that. I'm a big fan of side coaching, both as a coach and as a player, because we can all look at a scene retroactively and try to analyze like where the wheels came off, but it's helpful sometimes in the moment to be like, well, put my train on the right tracks so I can feel what that goes. Or sometimes as a coach, I like just I'll even say like, there's no right answer or wrong answer. I just want to see what happens if we play it this way, and then we have a side by side, and you can see like the multiverse of like, okay, we know where it went if we were peas in a pod. Now let's see where it went if I call out that choice and play the voice of reason.
I do that all the time.
It's fun. Yeah.
I love having my little guinea pig lab where I get to be like, this is great. I don't think these are bad choices. And like, we get what that song would be.
Yeah.
Can we see the scene? Can you go back to this point? And like, what happens if you say yes there instead of no? Not that no is always, I'm actually a big fan of no in improv.
Yeah.
But like, sometimes you just got to know where you are in the show, right? It's like, if we're in a narrative, no is the right choice. We're going to develop these characters. We're going to see more emotional interplay. If we're in a silly montage and we just want to get to a goofy, fun song, say yes here. Let's see. Peas in a pod. Let's see what happens.
We all have Australian accents.
Yeah, we all have Australian accents. And we're all excited to be 80s bro cops. Why not?
Right.
And then you see the two scenes, they'll be completely different. And it's usually not like, there's not a right one.
Yeah.
It's all situational.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's all multiverse options. And comes down to like what feels the most fun, or how can we maximize the joy on stage?
Totally.
Can we do some rapid fire improv questions?
Oh my God, yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay, yes, please. Yes, and please.
Okay, yes, and please. Yes, also.
Favorite character types to play?
I love playing a dramatic British villain.
Can you give me a taste of that?
I could give you a taste of that. But why would I waste my time on something so paltry as this interview when I have a world to conquer?
This is great.
Thank
I love
you.
that. Yeah, great. Is there something that lives in your memory bank, like Bond villains or something that kind of informs that? Or does that just come from your own soul?
I'm a huge fantasy nerd. My favorite series of all time is The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. And I think usually I'm channeling the big bads in that series are called the Forsaken.
Uh-huh.
And I'm usually channeling one of them. There's just like complete narcissistic, power-hungry dark wizards.
Yeah.
Who are trying to destroy the world, and I love them.
That's great, and great name, the Forsaken.
They're so good.
So you prefer playing baddies to goodies, is that right?
It's just easier.
It's okay, yeah.
Yeah. No, I like playing both.
Yeah.
You get to playing bad guys is more fun.
Yeah. What are your favorite types of good guys to play?
My favorite types of good guys to play are, well, are we talking regular improv or musical?
Either or, whatever occurs to you.
If I'm doing musical improv, because just so much of what I've done is dramatique, and it all exists in that same kind of world, I love like a really earnest, like an earnest inventor type.
Uh-huh.
Like
Belle's dad and Beauty and the Beast.
that's a great type. That's not a protagonist though.
That's
so is
true.
he a good guy? I guess he's a good guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an absent-minded professor is always fun as like a side character. If I'm a protagonist good guy, I want to be like, I don't know, I want to be the guy who's like, nobody believes in me just yet, but just wait. What I've done, it will change things.
Yeah.
It will. They just have to see. Yeah.
My special pencil will revolutionize writing.
It will. It writes upside down and in space.
Oh my God. Not sure if our school has a use for that right now, but we'll call you.
Okay. You're missing out.
Do you have a favorite type of object work to do or to watch?
Yes. My favorite type of object work as a general class is continuing to hold on to the object that everyone's forgotten you were holding because you first started holding it 5 minutes ago, and then you get to bring it back, and then everyone's like, it exists still.
I love that. That's the first general answer I've had for that. It counts, because people will be like, I like typing, or like I like unzipping a thing. But yeah, but that type is very real. Where it's like, I've been holding this mug, and you may have forgotten, but now I'm gonna be like, can you hold this for a second while I go into my briefcase?
God,
and
the easiest, biggest laugh is just everyone else forgot what you were holding, but you didn't.
That's great. Yeah. To rope in your fantasy love, pretend that we live in a universe where fantasy elements are real.
Okay.
What fantasy power or specialty or something would you like to bring into an improv show and put that in play among the improvisers?
Whoa, to use the power on stage?
Yeah.
Listen, as a trans person, I would be drawn and quartered if I didn't say transformation.
Okay.
That's what we all want.
Sure. What you mean, like if I'm playing a character, I actually I like shape shift into.
Yeah, like Mystique style stuff.
Yeah, cool. That would be so. Imagine that if everyone in an improv show was doing that. You could do a walk on like as a mouse.
Yeah, it'd be amazing.
Yeah.
But outside of transformation, which is the obvious correct answer, magic. I mean, I think any kind of like illusion magic would be amazing.
Yeah.
Like getting to literally not literally, but getting to visually transport the audience to like, we're not just like two guys who are wearing jeans and hoodies, but we're gondoliers in Venice. We're in Venice.
Right. Yeah, and here comes like a low mist over the audience, and the sound effects and the lights change, and you
can hear the Italian market in the distance, and
that would be amazing. Let me know when that comes to fruition. I'll definitely be at that show.
Great.
Cool.
Well, we're gonna have to tear some sort of rift into some dark dimension or something, I'm afraid.
Email Christine. She'll let you do it on.
Great. Perfect.
On an off weekend or something. Plug your shows. You have Cuties, you have Dramatique. You sort of plug them throughout, but I want to do like a big proper plug here.
Cuties is all trans improv and always funny and wild. If you're queer, go see it. If you're straight, I mean, you can buy a ticket. I don't know if you'll like the show, but we appreciate the support. It's every second Sunday. And Dramatique is, I wish it had a regular date. You know what? If you're listening to this podcast, please email Christine Bullen and beg her for me. But no, it's just the scattered Fridays. I'm also on a Herald team XOXO, and you can see us on Herald Nights.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sarah, for being here. And we're going to do a bonus interview for subscribers all about diving deeper into your journey through transness and improv and all that kind of stuff. Thank you, and see you in a second.
Yeah, thanks so much, Susie.
If you like this podcast, you can support us and get a ton of bonus content over at yesalso.supercast.com. If you have a question about improv that you'd like us to answer on one of our future Q&A episodes, send it on over to yesalsopod@gmail.com. Remember to follow us on Instagram at yesalsopod, and keep sharing us with your improv communities. We love the love. If you're a theater who would like to host us for a live recording and improv show, let us know at yesalsopod@gmail.com. A huge shout out to Ryan Rosenberg, who produced this thing with his generous help and his unlimited knowledge about all things podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. No, we won't, Susie. That's not how podcasts work. They will see. They won't even see us. They will listen to us. So it's actually the opposite of both things you said. Thanks for listening, and you will listen to us next week. Maybe. We don't know.